Welcome to Be Engaged, where we bring together brilliant minds, elevate discussions on many industries, and promote unity. So I'm your host, Michelle Harper. Today we're discussing current trends as well as the impact of AI on both technology and entertainment industry. Today we're checking in with Freddie Johnson, my good friend, and Jalysa Conway. Freddie is a senior solutions architect at Amazon Web Services and supports government customers, while Jalysa is a television writer and producer who has written for hit shows like Grey's Anatomy and 911 Lone Star. I'm super excited to hear about all this. So the format, so we talk about a fun fact, we get into the conversation, and then I'll ask your favorite quote of the podcast. Funny, crazy, whatever you want it to be.
Of course. Awesome.
So we'll see. Okay, fun fact. So a fun fact of the intersection of AI and future of entertainment is the AI-driven algorithms that are creating personalized movie scripts, tailored based on audience preferences, predicted trends, and even data from previous blockbusters, all the way to the point of like plot twists per your preferences. Like you can have a movie made for yourself and additional realistic digital actors. So Jalysa, that might be more in your realm, but on the technology part, Freddie's got. What do you think about that fun fact?
Is it fun fact or terrifying fact for those of us in the entertainment industry? So I have a lot of actor friends and a lot of writer friends and directors who are like, terrifying fact.
So what happened in the recent, I don't know what it was. It was a negotiation.
Strikes. Yeah, we had strikes. Yeah. So
what was the result of that? I read a little bit, but I don't have all the insight.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, we had dual strikes last summer. The writers struck first, the Writers Guild of America, which I'm a part of, happily. Total union girl, whoop whoop. And then right after we started our strikes, the Actors Guild, which is SAG-AFTRA, which is Screen Actors Guild, they all went on strike as well against the companies that employ us, which are the studios and the producers. And so what came at the end of it, we made some really good gains, some good negotiations on both sides. But one of the biggest hurdles was AI and entertainment. Because it's almost like the Wild West right now, because nobody knows what it can do, but everybody says it can do everything. So everyone's trying to use it for their side. And to the second point of being able to digitally scan your face and then have AI do whatever it wants with that, the actors are, rightly so, very afraid of that. Because imagine taking Leonardo DiCaprio's face, known everywhere. He's worked so hard to be the recognizable person he is. Titanic is still one of my all-time favorite movies. But imagine being able to digitally scan Leonardo DiCaprio's face and then put him into whatever movie you want. And here's the thing, the studios don't want to pay the actors to do that. They want to pay the one time to scan their face. And then now you have, like you said, you have a program where you can have Leonardo DiCaprio play in a Western that you want, or have him play in a space opera that you want. But Leo doesn't get paid for that because, the companies are companies. They want to make it as cheaply as possible. And so that's a big issue, because if you're going to use his likeness and put him into something, then, actors want to make sure they're getting compensated for their face. And so funny enough, it's, I think Sam Altman, so he wanted his AI to sound like Scarlett Johansson from the movie Her, right? Because Scarlett Johansson played the voice of the robot from the movie Her. I think it was like nominated for Oscars or something like that. And she said no. She said, I don't want you to use my voice for those purposes. She did. She took him to court because he basically did a scan of her voice from the movies and used it anyway. He made it slightly off, like I think one little melody off or something. But everybody knew, oh, that sounds like Scarlett Johansson, so right? And so she took him to court for it. And so that's actually a big fight in the entertainment industry, which I'm a computer science major background. I am a tech person in addition to a creative. And technology is neither good nor bad, right? It's neither good nor evil. Like, technology is just how you use it. But so I am excited for how we can use it in our work for us, but then at the same time don't want the actual people doing the work, the creatives, to also get screwed when the studios will essentially try to use the work to cut jobs and to to do what we do, but for free or for cheap, you know? So
We're definitely going to get into the discussion on how can we use it for good versus taking advantage of people. That's a big difference. And how do we use technology for good versus, taking the money for, I don't know, a very small amount of people versus distributing it to multiple people. Freddie, you were going to chime in.
And for context, because I think this is very important, Jalysa is my wife. So,
Oh,
uh,
yes. I
so
forgot.
yeah, a little important.
yeah,
Jalisa
and the
is
reason why it's
married.
important, the reason why it's important is because as someone like myself who works in technology, who's currently going through the AI transformation, working with customers who's interested in AI, um, I'm very knowledgeable on the AI side. I say very knowledgeable. I have an understanding of the AI side, but having my wife who works in the industry, it's great to get her point of view on it, right? Because sometimes I come at it from like, oh, this is cool, this is AI is great, but then she starts walking me through like how it affects our industry. And one of the reasons why we even value, at least personally for me, I feel like we value TV entertainment is because someone had to create that, right? And it's like that connection to that product is like, wow, like like we'll take Avengers or something, when you go to that movie and you're like, wow, all these people had to get together. You had casting, you had the makeup artist. I'm gonna butcher all these terms because my wife is the expert here, but like someone had to dress them up and they had to write that. They had to get in a room, break that story, figure that out, and it's the aggregation of all these pieces is what made it so good, right? And like I feel like when you bring in a computer and AI, you just type in like, "Hey, make me a movie, blase blase." I feel like now you've taken away like the creativity and the uniqueness of it. But it definitely has its places. We just got to figure out what that is and ethically what that looks like as well. Because with it being so new right now, are there even any laws out here? Like even on social media, you get on social media now and you see all these pictures and you're like, they have six fingers. That's not
Yeah,
right, right?
something's
But
wrong
the,
here.
Yeah,
yeah, but like there's a whole generation of people who are not aware of it and they're just taking it and running with it.
Yeah,
for
the
sure.
social platforms can't get sued, and so that's the reason you can put any content, and it's free to put content on the social platforms. They wouldn't exist without the content being there,
For
and
sure.
that content can be very negative. It can be absolute lies. It can be made up things. It can be AI generated items, and there is no repercussions of saying terrible things and lying, and getting more attention and influence for it, which is a
For sure.
problem, which is a big
Yeah.
problem in the world today.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so getting into the main discussion. That was a great fun fact, by the way, and I love.
For sure.
We're going to talk more about that. That sets the
Absolutely.
stage a little bit. So, Freddie, how long have we known each other? Just remind me
Oh,
how
oh
many
man,
years.
2018 maybe. I want to say 2018. So it'd been 6 years.
Probably 6 years. We're
Yeah, it's been a while.
connected. Just
Yeah.
instantly connected. You've got a Louisiana background. My in-laws are in Louisiana. Every
Oh
time we
yeah.
travel, we text each other pictures.
I'm going in
And
December.
oh, really? So am I. Oh my gosh, that'd be so fun. Maybe we'll
Hmm.
connect. That'd be really fun. And so we work together. We used to work together. And now, in your new position as a solutions architect with Amazon, what trends, technology trends, are you seeing that are just so interesting? And just what are you seeing now that with your new perspective?
Yeah, definitely. For a while there, containers was really taking off, and it's still taking off. A lot of customers are taking their workloads and containerizing them and moving them to like the cloud or just containerizing them for on-premise. But as of late, the AI boom has definitely been something that we've been seeing a lot of customers at least inquire about, like, hey, how can we leverage AI in the cloud? Or, customers just understanding like what is AI, and we have an entire team of specialists that can come in and work with customers there. But we've definitely started seeing customers lean, especially in like the government spaces, to AI, because when you look at a lot of the new releases on the commercial side of things, like with Chat GPT and being able to just, ask it questions, have it read documents for you. Customers want to use this at work, right? And they want to bring this in to their work environment. And they want to use, cloud-based technologies to be able to do that. So we've been experiencing that a lot lately.
Yeah, I can imagine, because I'm on the other side requesting, like, how can we leverage this for good?
Yeah.
There's a big ethics discussion that still needs to be in the forefront about how and why are you using technology. And I think that's pervasive across all industries. I don't think that's just one or two. All industries are looking to leverage technology to get ahead and to make more and to produce more or have more quality. But what are those ethics behind it? So,
Exactly.
Jalysa, when you think of the technology, your husband's very technical, I know. And he's doing all this stuff in the background.
Yeah.
What do you think about, and you're a little bit more on the artistic producer of content and entertainment side. By the way, I want some good stories about Grey's Anatomy at some point. What's your perspective on all of this? Is it moving too quickly? Is it just we need to figure things out? Or just overall, what's your perspective?
For sure, for sure. So like, I also come from that computer science background. Like, I have my undergrads in computer science.
Oh, perfect.
I was a huge tech nerd in addition to also being a writer. And so like, I love technology. In fact, in my computer science program in my undergrad, we had this class called Science, Technology, and Society. And it was an ethics class about technology and its integration in society, and are we ready, when are we not ready. We talked about the Manhattan Project. We talked about microwaves and like how the microwave was invented and then it wasn't adopted until 50 years later in American households because no one trusted this idea of having microwaves in your house, like the literal microwave process in your house.
Something that we take for
So
granted today.
exactly, we take it for granted today. And so like, the tech nerd side of me is like, I mean, I love new technology, right? That's how we advance as a society, is how well does our technology evolve, right? And like, technology is going to go the speed that it does. But the other side of me, the artistic side, is like, we do at least need safeguards in place to be able to adopt it without it running super rampant, right? Because the whole reason why we love art as humans, right? Why we love classical music, why we love, or music in general, why we love reading books and reading literature and reading what people say about the time that they're in, what we love about film and TV, about radio, like even like this, because right, podcast is the evolved form of radio. What we love about this is the human connection, that human element where you're just literally, like Freddie said earlier, you're seeing humans try a thing and you're on this journey with them for however they express themselves. And so when you bring AI into it, what you lose is the thing that drives us to art, which is the human element. And AI is cool, and it's interesting to see where it goes. I believe it's gonna work wonders for, like, I was a part of this panel that talked to a bunch of scientists, and they were like, AI is doing amazing things in the science and medical communities, right? These little hand jammer calculations that they would have to do, which would take them hours on end, they could do it with AI and have that part go faster so that they can focus more on solving the big issues. And so I'm like, that's beautiful. Use it for that. Absolutely. That's great. But when you try to bring it into art just to make it commerce and cheaper, then art stops being art, right? Because all AI does is take the aggregate of all the content that's already been made by humans, by the way, and then it just spits you out a repetition of it, but it can't do the one thing that humans can do naturally because of how our brains are wired, which is create. It can't create anything new, right? You think it's new because it's like, oh, here's a script. But yeah, it just took 1,000 other scripts and then took pieces from them and then made a thing. But that's not creation. That's not new. That's not finding new patterns in the art. That's not having new expressions about the thing. It can't do the second step of the human brain, which is its own self-discovery and then creating something new from self-discovery and having an opinion about it.
As someone that works in tech and constantly watch my wife break story, like, explain, like, that scripts aren't written in the first go. Like, explain, like, how you do those iterations, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And how you really break that story.
Yeah, for sure. So like, you'll have like say you want to write about female spies, and this is a story about female spies, and you're like, cool, it's gonna be set in DC, it's gonna be great, blah 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 blah. Well, your first draft of this female spy script is gonna have Mission Impossible in it. It's gonna have the new Special Ops Lioness. It is gonna have everything that like inspired you to write about female spies, which is all the content you've seen. And so that's the first pass. AI can do that pretty well. Boom, first pass, something new. Here's a woman. She's in DC. She's doing the spy stuff. But it's going to have all those cliches in it. Now, we as humans then can then read that and go, oh, man, this sucks. This is terrible.
This needs revised.
This needs revision. I've seen this here, so I'm going to change this. I've seen this here, so I'm going to change this. And then I also have my MFA in creative writing, so like now I know how to craft story and what makes story connect with an audience. And like you think, oh, if I want to make my audience cry, I'll have my character cry. Wrong. Most people don't cry when they see somebody else cry. No, but if you're like, oh, this spy, her mother died on 9/11, and now she's at her mom's grave, and she's standing over her mom's grave remembering that day where her father told her that her mom was not going to come back because she was in the Pentagon. Boom, now you're crying. But that's because I know it's not seeing her cry, it's knowing why she cries. AI can't do that because AI doesn't understand human emotions. Maybe it will. Maybe Skynet will happen one day. But as of right now, AI cannot do that. And so like that revision process, and it might take iteration after iteration after iteration of that script till it gets to a place where it's like something that you want to watch on TV. But AI can't do that because you can try to tell it, oh, this is why this part's not good, but it's only as good as how you code it, and you're going to code it with all your biases. So at most it'll make you a mediocre script, but it can't do that second step, which is create something new out of the patterns we're recognizing, the stories we hear, what we have coming in. Like the human brain is amazing. It's magical. It's great. AI cannot replicate it as of right now.
Yeah, as of right now, we'll see.
Right, as of right now, we'll see.
The
future is the future.
It's gonna go.
For sure.
We used it across a couple industries. I've talked to a lot of people, and then recorded a couple on these podcasts as the AI assistant, getting you there 60% of the way. And so coding, having the coders code 60%, and proposal writers and even emails, I always run through my emails to make sure that they're really good, especially in certain situations.
I use the coding piece a lot.
Okay, tell me about that.
Yeah,
Is it secure coding though? My question is, how secure is it? Is it taking what it learned from secure code practices?
So, it's funny you would say that. And I was recently talking to my wife about this. I code a lot in my free time, like every night I code. Like coding is like my Sudoku. Like it's just like the thing I like to do. I built my wife's website, like all this stuff. And like the thing that it does for me that makes it really helpful is that like if you already understand how to code, it's a great assistant because every now and then it'll give me some code and I'm like, this is garbage. Like, it gets the job done, but like, I would not do it this way because this is like a roundabout way to do it. But where it's really been helpful for me is in two phases, the planning phase and the execution phase. And I'll kind of walk you through that. So in the planning phase, I have this idea, I got this thing I want to build. I typically write code in either TypeScript or C Sharp. I'm a C Sharp person. I love C Sharp. And I know how I want to do it. I've done it before or I've read about it before, but like I need a skeleton to kind of see how this is going to work. And I'll just start like, I'll use something like ChatGPT and I'll just ask it questions like, hey, I want to use JWT authentication. I want to be able to, do this in this cloud environment, et cetera, et cetera. What does this look like in code? How do I do like multi-tenancy? And then I'll look at the code and I'll read it and I'll be like, okay, now this is triggering what I already know of how to implement this. Now that I've seen that, I want to tailor this and then also asking it more follow-up questions, which is great because when you're a one-person, team like me writing code at night, it helps. If you were in the office and you would be doing this with like your coworkers, right? But you're only as good as what they know as well. And AI gives you access to a big world of, code bases and things that have been implemented. And then when we start getting to the implementation phase, there are things that I constantly write over and over and over again in classes. And AI helps me like automatically do it. But I never auto accept. You know, I read the Reddit posts. I like some of the senior devs are upset that the
Oh
junior devs just
no.
auto accept with the AI inserts. And I understand why, because it could take code that should be simple and add like layers of complexity to it that like that's like not needed.
Hmm.
But for me, it helps me move faster as a one man shop going through my code base. But I think for me, it gets into this really sticky subject because like I came through college back in 2006. Same with my wife, right? We didn't have OneNote, we didn't have OneDrive, we definitely didn't
Yeah.
have any AI. And like, I couldn't imagine going through any of my computer programming classes today. Because I feel like I wouldn't learn as much because I will be relying on it like a little too much to like
Yeah.
understand things like recursion, things like that when AI is just going to help me do it for. Now, the counter argument is always like, well, it frees you up to work on other things that are important. But like it kind of goes back to my wife's point too with the creativity piece, right? Like I have this idea right now because I really care about helping the elderly. And I got this idea of working on an app that helps the elderly that have millennial kids like myself who don't live near home with transportation, etc. And one right off the bat, one can say, "Oh, this is Uber," but you know, at, when you start really thinking about this, like I have to sit down and figure out like what is the problem and how do I solve the problem. And like
Hmm.
AI is not just sitting in a computer at the moment trying to figure out the problems to be solved. Like you kind of got to give it some information and kind of tailor it, right? And like that's the thing that I'm starting to, really realize. Like it can help assist me there, but like it still requires me to kind of figure out where I want to point it. Now that might
Hmm.
change in the future, but at the moment,
Hmm.
I look at it more as like an assistant for sure. But you have to be cautious because, as you mentioned earlier, where does it get these code snippets from? And I know in the beginning there were like a few discussions of lawsuits because companies were bringing in code into their apps that came from like proprietary locations that had AI scan it. I know, for example, there are some offerings out there that allow you to leverage AI on your own data without having to take advantage of other people's data, but it's definitely something to consider
Hmm.
um, as we move forward.
Yeah, the
For
security of
sure.
it. But I like the fact that it gets you at a certain place. And then if we're thinking positively about it, it allows you to be more creative faster. Again, you're a senior person who knows this already, but it allows you to kind of multiply your capabilities. Is that the same thing with scripts? Like it gets you 60% of the way there, and then your creativity, because I mean even right now a lot of the movies are just redoing previous movies with a little bit of a
Sure.
twist because they know
Yeah.
it's going to make money. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, this is going to be the same thing AI does. It's
Yeah.
easy, just
Yeah.
reuse. But maybe it'll allow it to be more creative, maybe, I don't know.
So what I use it in more of the discovery process, like Freddie,
Mm-hmm.
right? So because I'm dabbling again. If it's a tool that I can use to be better, I'm gonna do that. I don't necessarily use it in my scripts because writing scripts for me, like he said, it's more of a one cathartic process, just because I love writing, and two, as I'm going, especially through the first draft, I just want to get out the feelings that I'm like, as scene by scene, as I'm going through these scenes, I got to get out how I feel about it. So I need to legit line by line from this character's mouth to this character's ears. What are they saying? What's in my head that they're saying? And I, getting through that first draft, I need to go through the process. So I don't actually have AI write my scripts. What I do is say I have like, oh, I want to write a pirate thing. I want to write a swashbuckler. Well, cool. I want it to be about a real, actual like pirate shipwreck or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, Chat GPT, tell me all the shipwrecks in and around Florida, right? And then Chat
Mm-hmm.
GPT will say, hey, here are the shipwrecks around Florida, and it's like, okay, cool. Well, which one has like what's the history behind these shipwrecks? And then it'll spit out whatever, probably scanned from Wikipedia. Here's the history of this shipwreck, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And then it's like that. It's like more research based in
Mm-hmm.
terms of getting me answers faster, less so the actual writing itself.
Yeah, the research is a lot faster. I talked about that in one of the episodes with a friend that's doing education.
Mm-hmm.
And, what are we going to teach our kids? So, you guys have a new kid.
Yes.
Yeah.
One and a half,
Yeah, a
Yeah,
little
he's
over one and a
19
half.
months. Yeah.
19 months. Okay, yeah. So I think about that a lot with my kids. What are we teaching them? And from the coding, as we're all computer
Hmm.
scientists here, um, are we going to teach people to code in
Hmm.
college anymore, or they have
For
the tools
sure.
for it, and we teach them something else? And is
Yeah.
art and philosophy and how to think going to be more of the focus versus learning something and memorizing something because AI is going to give it to you in a second. So are we going to
For
spend our
sure.
time, what are we going to spend our
Yeah, I
time
know.
teaching kids?
Yeah. I mean, I
It's
have
such a
like. Go ahead.
oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, I
No,
was just
well, oh,
go ahead.
sorry, go
Well, no,
ahead.
so I have friends who are like tutors, who are teachers, and everything like that, and so they all also have very they're more on the negative side of it because
Okay.
kids aren't learning now, right? They're just
Yeah.
like, what's the answer? You gave me homework, I just got to solve the homework, right?
Yeah.
Versus like they're not getting what the homework is trying to teach you, which is how to write, how to think, how to critically think, how to assess, right? And so like I have a tutor friend who there's this one student who constantly gives her AI work, and it's like she's like, I know this is AI work because I've seen what you write and I've
Yeah.
seen what the AI writes, and that is, it's not the same.
It's a
And so
different
like
tone.
these, it's different tones, and these kids aren't learning. They're not learning how to write, how to craft a thought, and then craft supporting evidence to support your thought. They're not learning coding. But the issue is they don't know that it's not right, right? They need an
Yeah.
expert to say this is not right. They would get like what Freddie was saying earlier about the junior coders not know, they're just like, oh, this looks right, and then they give it to the senior coder, and the senior coder is like, this is stupid. Why
This
would
is
you
not
you
good.
took 20 lines to do something you can do in 2 lines? Why are you
Yeah.
giving me this? But that's because these kids coming up these days don't know what is right in this new wild west, but like they don't know the right way to do it. And so
Yeah.
I think it's just going to create actually more problems, because I think you do need people to like, we use products that take apps, we use products that take programs. Like you still need coders, at least for the foreseeable future. We have so many legacy systems that still require coding. I think Freddie, you were talking about working on a legacy system that are still required, like what, Cobalt or something like that. Like
Oh my
we
Oh
still
gosh.
yeah.
use
Yeah.
we still use these things in like very important applications, so we can't get rid of it anytime soon. But like I think we are doing a disservice to our kids that they can't put together 2 sentences and then support their argument because they don't actually learn how to do that anymore. They just
And
have
that's the thing.
ChatGPT make the report for them, and then the teacher is like, well, this is clearly fake, and then still gives them the F. Like,
I
Yeah.
don't want to sound like, oh my God, I feel like I'm about to sound like the old guy all over something
get
all of
off
a
my
sudden. Yeah.
lawn.
We are.
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
all
I feel
person
like I'm going to
now.
be like back in my day. But like, I don't know. It's been one of those things. Like as you mentioned earlier, we have a 19-month-old. He's going to daycare right now. He's saying his ABCs. Like he's learning, and like I have these thoughts of like, how do we make sure that he grows up and he's able to critically think, right? Without, because like, how much assistance is too much assistance in the beginning? You know, like you have some parents like, oh, they don't get the iPad till like they're like 4 because we want to make sure that they learn how to do things and don't get stuck to the screen. I look at it like that with AI too. It's like, what's the right amount of AI and when is the right amount to introduce it, right? Because like, yes, AI can help you code, but at the moment, we still have context of what could be, right? So like I'll just go back to the like Uber. Someone somewhere sat down someday and was like, why can't we just summon the cars to ourselves, and have it come pick me up and do all like someone had to think about that. And they had to
Yeah.
have the ability to critically think and figure out that there was a problem that needed to be solved. And then they figured out the coding piece, right? And like, does AI nurture or hinder our ability to critically think as we move forward? There's counter arguments both ways. Some people say, hey, it frees us up. So to go do those critically thinking type activities. Teachers might argue that it doesn't because the kids are not grasping the fundamentals that they need now to do things that they need to do. Because like I couldn't imagine back when I used to get. You remember like in third grade when you got like three times three is this, right? I couldn't imagine today you give me that and I can just take a picture of it with my phone and it just gives me the answers.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like how does that affect you long term? And
For
we
sure.
honestly don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think here's the important part to remember. No company is going to pay you to go just think about a thing and then, like, okay, cool. Like, no, like, there's
Yeah.
no, you can't sustain that lifestyle. Like, if this was, back in the day and, you're in Athens and Socrates is like, hey, come to my library and let's all think about things. And you can sustain a lifestyle that way. That's great. But you're not buying a house off of some company telling you, hey, come, we're going to pay you 90K just to come think about things. Like, no
Yeah.
one does that. Companies pay you for a product, they pay you for a thing. Like, studios pay me to write a thing and then give it back to them. And then they'll hire directors to do that too. Companies pay him to make a product or either make a product or tell somebody else that their product is stupid and like here's a better way of doing that. Like it would be great
Needs
if
improvement.
needs improve sure it needs improvement. It
Well,
would
you
be
are
great if
senior.
we could
That's how you
sustain a
talk.
lifestyle and then like have AI do the small stuff and then we can go do that, but no company is going to pay for that. So you can't have a lifestyle where you're going to go thinking about problems and not
Uh,
actually solving them.
And
So
honestly, you
like
get
so
into
that's
a
that's the
whole
disconnect. That's the disconnect because like you that it's tough because like how do you then sustain like your family and a home and a life unless you're actually
yeah, that's what
physically
I was about to say. Now
making
you
a
get into
thing
the
and making a
economics of
product.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now there are some things though that like for example, when me and my wife do road trips, we have a Tesla and like it's really nice
Oh
for
yeah.
a 6 hour road trip
Yeah.
where you just put it in autopilot and like you
Yeah.
get to where you're gonna go
Yep.
refreshed. And like I start thinking about like when our son turns 18 or he's able to drive, he's really gonna look at us and be like, "You really like held on to the steering wheel for six
That
hours
many
and
hours? Yeah.
stopped." Yeah, like
Yeah.
you had to, and like there's pros and cons of that too, right? So like,
Hmm.
the pros is that like our kids will be safer. Cons is maybe there's less organ donors because there's less accidents. Like it's all these things that
Or
you kind of got to,
experiences. We're
yeah,
going to have less experiences.
experiences.
You know, when you go on the side of the road, you're in the middle of nowhere and you just look out into a field and you're
Yep.
like, huh, so this is how people live. And,
Yep.
it's
Yeah,
like, you discover life a little bit. You're like,
Oh yeah.
oh,
yeah.
so those experiences are going to be gone because it's going to be
Like
so
you,
great.
you remember when we were little and our parents used to be like, I walked 10 miles in the
Yeah.
snow backwards to go to school. That's gonna be my story to my son. And I'm gonna be like, I had MapQuest to go to college and they printed it out and I
Yep.
had to like follow it. And he's gonna be like, MapQuest, follow like just type it in the car and it just takes you, you
Yeah, the
know.
car will take you itself.
So there, my other question is, so we're in a technology state. It is rapidly changing right now, and it seems like there's more focus and value on the companies making more money and getting bigger
Hmm.
versus thinking about and talking about the people and what are we going to do in our society or what do we do in our society. I'm personally trying to invest a little bit more in art, like entertainment, artistic expression, and pay money to go to different things because I think that part of our culture needs to sustain. But it's like crashing down on us. Technology is moving so fast and gaining so much speed. And then the companies are saying, hey, I need to make more profits, squeeze everything out of this. And I'm going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I can do whatever I want because, I'm getting bigger and I'm running the economy now, taking over other companies, smaller companies. What do you think about that? Am I
Oh,
exaggerating or?
no, it's like, oh, I'm not gonna go into too much on this podcast, but my wife knows I constantly worry that, and not to get too political, but I constantly worry that we put the cart before the horse with a lot of this, as you mentioned earlier, with chasing profits. And we don't think about, well, if yes, we made things more efficient, we need less people to do this, but we don't have a mechanism on the back end to like retrain people to do something else. And what happens when people can't participate in the economy that is out there, right? Like, all right, you're making profits, but if I can't buy stuff, then how, like it,
Yeah.
at some point it's going to come to a head because the population is still growing. People still need to eat. You still got those Maslow's hierarchy of needs that need to be met. And I feel
Mhm.
like they're not fully looking at that as we progress forward because things are moving just so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little scary because, in my experience, not that I'm that experienced, but it ends up being people have to express themselves and take,
Hmm.
which means that starts to get into physical conflict and that starts to
Yeah.
increase the probability of wars when, if there's too many people unemployed, quite honestly,
Hmm.
that's not good because
No.
I
then
mean,
they
we could,
start doing things and making poor decisions and maybe getting on drugs, and which causes a lot
yeah.
of, problems
I
as
mean,
Hmm.
a
well.
real world example, like when we were growing up, you could get a summer job working at the grocery store as a cashier, or working at fast food. But like now, a lot of these stores is automated. You go
Mm.
scan it yourself, right? And it's like, well, what happens to all the people that use that to make income, even if they were, a college student? Like, there's going to have to be some type of circle back
Hmm.
on it.
And when we talked about the products that we're all making, and that's how you get paid is the
Hmm.
products.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to see that design phase, that discovery phase, which we can kind of say, okay, that's the thinking part of it. Because
Hmm.
AI is going to do the technology side for you. So, how do we
Right.
get that thinking part elongated or focused on a little bit more so that we do have time? My favorite thing to
Hmm.
do is sit outside and close my eyes and think. It's so
Right.
enjoyable. I don't get that time.
Right. I would love to. Like I think we would all like one benefit. So it's funny, so we were both in the military. And so when I was in the Air Force, I was stationed in Italy and the Italians got it right. Man, the Italians, like, working for them is just like you work just long enough to be able to pay for your basic necessities, and then you go spend time with your community. You go
Yeah.
spend time with your family. Like you go out to eat, or you eat around a common table. You have like aperitivos, and like sit and talk in like the village square, because a lot of it is still that like very much old school. Like there's a village center, and then everyone is like spoked around it, right? Because everything congregates to that village center. And so and then they bike everywhere and they walk everywhere, and then everything is just designed to, like, I think American culture very much is centered around work, 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 work. What are you producing
Mm-hmm.
for the country? What are you doing for your country, right? Like, you got to work, you got to work. And like the Italians would even, because the base that we were on in Italy was like technically is an Italian base, but the Americans are like doing most of our ops from it, right? And so the Italians would just laugh at us and be like, "Y'all work too much,"
Yes.
because like they would have holidays, and then the next day they were also off because it was a holiday to the holiday. Because the holiday you were doing stuff, right? You were hanging out with
Yeah.
your family and stuff, and then the second day was just your time to chill. And I'm just like, that's brilliant. And like, hopefully we do go back to a sense of that. But I think it's going to take us as a collective to go, this is important. Like, we got to
Mm-hmm.
spend time with each other. Like, yes, use technology to make our lives easier so that we can then like remember the important things, like us like being able to like spend time with our son and just go hang out with him and take him
Yeah.
to the park or something.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, the
Yeah.
United States is the most recent continent, the country
Hmm.
formed really. And so, and I come from the Midwest myself, and it was all about work. Get the
Hmm.
land figured out. You got to make money. Here you go. Here's some land. Figure out how to make money off of it. And
Yeah.
just work your whole life because we were kind of just coming up and we're trying to become a country itself.
Yeah.
And I think that hopefully we're to the point where, okay, we're a pretty good country. Now let's even it out on the working focus and the efficiency, the maximum amount of profits to spend time with the people that you love and get the
Hmm.
culture connected again. Because I think that might be a little bit behind a lot of the just divisiveness happening right now.
Hmm.
Is just
Hmm.
more time with your family, more time
Yeah.
with the people you love. Because at the end of the day, you're not coming back and saying, "Oh, I wish I would have worked more."
Yeah.
Usually, people are saying, "I wish I spent more time with my loved ones."
Yeah.
Right. For sure. So we can use the technology to create that lifestyle for like the average everyday person. Then
Yeah,
I think that would be using the technology for good. So
yeah. And so you were in the Air Force, Freddie. You were in the Air Force. Is that where you all met? You guys
yeah.
met in the Air
Yeah.
Force?
We met
We
in the Air
did.
Force.
Oh, that's so
Hmm.
cute. And now you have your baby, and you guys are
Hmm.
off and
Yeah.
running.
Oh yeah,
Super cute.
and he is tearing up the house. It's the daycare right now, but he is tearing up the house.
I love it. I love it. Okay, thank you for your time and energy and your thoughts on this like important subject.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for
Yeah,
inviting us
thank you,
onto your podcast.
thank you as
Yes.
well.
All right, Mr. Freddie Johnson, Jalysa Conway, thanks again for being on the Be Engaged podcast, and all rights reserved to be engaged. Okay,
Of
thank you
course.
so
Thank
much.
you.
All right.